how does that saying go again? What is a king without subjects? Or is it really what are subjects without a king? A group of indoctrinated people, or seemingly indoctrinated people, 3 of them to be precise. 1 gets punished, she gets her penance, but that's the best thing that she could get. She would have gotten more if not for that other one. Sheidheda does what he wanted all along, gets what he wanted all along, and he comes out on top. He wins the first battle. And the only one who understood it all, the only one who knew what Sheidheda was doing and could have saved the day but was not listened to, happens to be Murphy. Indra makes a bad choice, and she loses that leadership that she got a couple of episodes ago. But welcome back, guys, to another one of my The 100 videos and my review of the 9th episode of the 7th and final season of the series, otherwise titled The Flock. Now, as per the usual, let's start with the title of the episode. Now, the flock could refer to multiple things on this episode. It could refer to the Bardoans, the current Bardoans, because we know the original Bardoans, those 10-foot aliens, were killed in their last war, whatever that is. We're gonna try to discuss that on this video. But yeah, the current Bardoans, the second dawn, all these people, they are a flock, they are sheep. They are following blindly, believing in that one human being, the shepherd, as some kind of a god. But there is the more important one, the one that I think tempted them to title this episode The Flock. Sheidheda a few episodes ago referred to the followers of Russel, the faithful, as sheep. That means they are a flock of sheep. And hence what happened on this episode, what we saw with them, the strong belief, oh, these are lies, you are definitely Daniel Prime, he's just saying what they wanted to hear, and then getting all angry for the death of their god. And their god is but a mere man, their god is but a weak man, just like I think Sheidheda is actually a weak and mere man. But there's also that third flock, the one that kneels as soon as they figure out that this guy is Sheidheda. This is a more dangerous flock, because while I think that Bill Cadigan is definitely a dangerous god, I also think this one is a much more dangerous one. But okay though, this season, and apparently the ending of last season, the return of Octavia from the anomaly and falling in Gabriel's arm, this season has been giving us reveals and then explaining them later on. So you get a reveal and then you get a flashback that explains it and so on and so forth, and hence why there is no progression in the Clarke story, meeting her friends, them seeing totally indoctrinated and totally different, totally brainwashed on last week's episode. But on this week's though, we do get an explanation. Now, first and foremost, the beginning of the episode does prove my point from last week's episode. Time on Bardo definitely moves way quicker than on Nakara. That's why when Clarke reunites with her friends on last week's episode, they're completely changed. They are indoctrinated, brainwashed. That's also why Echo's wounds, the ones that she carved in her own face, have healed by then. So that one day, those few hours that they spent on Nakara were the equivalent of 3 months on Bardo. And that also answers your question as to why Clarke and the others are not losing their memories even though they're going through the anomaly and without suits. Because when you're moving from a planet that's moving slower to a planet that's moving faster, time-wise, you do not lose your memories. It's only when you move in the opposite direction. So, if they were moving from Sanctum to Nakara instead, they would have lost their memories. Now, these guys have been turned into disciples, they're putting up an act. We understand that much by the end of the episode. To talk the details, there's that trip to the surface, the Bardoan surface. This is what happens if we lose the war. We're gonna be crystallized like these people. Now, there's one thing that we realize about Gabriel and about Levitt on this episode. So Levitt almost screwed them over when he advised them to go to the surface. He does explain later on that his expectation was they were going to survive up there for a couple of hours. I think he had a plan. He does make it seem like he had a plan, like he wanted to figure out something. Maybe to help them, maybe not. Not 100% certain, but he did have a plan. Now, so far, we couldn't really say he's a bad guy. We couldn't know for sure. He does seem as well to care for Octavia so much. Boy's got a big crush on the girl. So, yeah, I can't tell he's a bad guy. So, after all, that thing that he wanted to check out might have been a plan that he was planning to execute in order to save them all, even after they go to the surface. But there is the other aspect though to all of this, the Gabriel aspect. Now Gabriel did save them. I think that Gabriel might still have done all of this because he wants to stay the science, the discovery, the stone, the anomaly, all those kind of things that have bothered him, boggled his mind for so long, getting a resolution for all of that, an answer to all his questions. But still, he did the right thing. He saved the entire group. As to his intentions, and to Levitt's as well, we're gonna figure that out as we go. Now let us break down what we know so far. So number one, we know that these people think Clarke is the key. The key is really the flame, we know that. Number two, we know that Bill, with all his arrogance, just wants to open that portal, the white portal that Becca went through on last week's episode and came back scared to death. Number three, we know that Anders has been preaching that what happened to the original alien Bardoans, as Octavia describes them, has been the product of their last war. So the war with the people, or the creatures, or whatever it is that's beyond that white portal. Now the only question is this really true? Is this really the case? Because for one thing, they don't know the Bardoans, they probably have never met the Bardoans. I don't think the 10-foot tall crystal aliens, before they became crystals, would have welcomed these guys, these strangers, with open arms. So how do they really know? Well, there's a chance that's gonna be revealed and they really know what they're talking about, but there's another chance that it's all part of the religious lie that Bill Cadigan has created. The man's made himself into some kind of god. He is an arrogant man. We can see that. We can tell that from past episodes, and he's made himself into a god. There's a religion going on there, like scriptures and passages and all of that stuff. Some serious brainwashing, like Hope calls it. So while all of this might sound like it is the history of the Bardoans being relayed to these three and to the audience as well, it might not at all be real. Whatever it is that's happened to these guys, the original Bardoans, might be something completely different, has got nothing to do with the stone, has got nothing to do with the white portal, and it's all made up. It's all the make-believe bit that Bill Cadigan has created as soon as he found Bardo, like I found a place with people or aliens that are already dead, and now I can use that to my advantage, use that arrogance of mine, grow my ego even more, make up a story, convince all these people that they're fighting to avoid a fate similar or worse than the one that the Bardoans have received. That said, I'm not going to scrap my time travel theory yet. I still give it a 50%, maybe even 40%, but still I'm not scrapping it completely. I'm not really scrapping any of the theories out there because they all sound good and they all sound legit. But okay, let's get back to the events of this episode. I love Octavia's summary or description of the situation when they go to the surface. 10-foot aliens build this place, genocided, turned to stone, enemy, we're gonna fight. Not instilling so much hope there, but however, it's an accurate description. But here though comes Levitt's first major statement on this episode. They will mess up with your minds, amp up your emotions. It's crucial that you stay in control. He's not the biggest believer in everything that's going on, and there's also his crush on Octavia. The man really feels for all these people. He doesn't want them to change. He doesn't want Octavia more specifically to change, but probably all of them as well. He's a kind person. He's a nice person so far. From what it seems, he understands that these emotions are the essence of humanity, so his statement is kind of twofold, like don't lose control over your emotions, over your minds, but also don't lose control of your emotions, like make sure you pass these tests and everything, but simply put, rather do it by cheating. But circling back though to the religion bit, we do see that scene with the passages and all that talk and all those kids. And one thing I want to say over here is a lot of people did object to Callie's behavior on last week's episode, and the majority were like, oh, she's very disrespectful of her father. Now, I'm a big believer that you should respect your parents. I am one of those people who does respect his parents, but looking at Bill Cadigan, he's not really the kind of man who commands respect. Big ego, so much arrogance, such an asshole, and the product is this religion that he created to make himself into a god. So when you kind of think about it, Bill Cadigan is not worthy of respect from anyone with a half-decent moral compass. But anyway though, I was very displeased with the way that Hope acted throughout the episode. She's silly, she's stubborn, she's a stupid child. Everyone is on board with at the very least putting up an act to make Anders and the others believe that they've basically bought into all of this. That of course leads to the ultimate failure for Hope. That leads to her being sentenced by Echo to 5 years on Skyring. And I understand what Echo did there. Like, okay, we're gonna give her the least possible punishment, make sure that she goes away for those 5 years, think it all through, and then maybe she'll come back smarter. Maybe she'll do the same thing that we did. But anyway, I've talked about Levitt's crush on Octavia. I'm gonna go back there for a moment. I mean, the way he reacts to her when Echo sorts of betrays them during the training. There's the way he visits her, advises her as well, tries to make sure she is safe, she's not sent to penance, gives her advice there. Kid's got a massive crush really, and there's all the kissing to prove it. Now for a moment there, I almost forgot that the 7 symbols that were in red were always in red on Octavia's back. But that made me think, this is the code that Levitt put on her back, like he gave her the code to open the anomaly right where she is, and that's how 1, Hope got to her and sent her back to Bardo, and 2, Bellamy got abducted. So the question over here is, why did Levitt do that? Why did the camera focus on that? Is it trying to tell us that Levitt is not a good person, that he's playing a long con, has an endgame that we don't understand yet, that maybe he is not the best guy in all of this? Not sure yet, but we're gonna find out. It is possible, though, when you think of all of that he did it on purpose, like he wanted them to unlock the portal or the anomaly from the other side, from the Sanctum side. Hopefully Clarke would be there, so that's 2 birds, 1 stone. We're gonna get Octavia back, and we're gonna get Clarke with her, just like they got Bellamy on that episode. They wanted to target certain people. Bellamy was one of them, and Clarke was another one. But anyway though, and before I move on and speak briefly of the Sheidheda arc, let's talk about that last test, with Octavia especially, because we had that statement once again, your fight is over. A good old reference to Grounder language, a Grounder death, a reference to last week's episode too, because that's the statement that was said in Grounder slang by none other than Callie Cadigan after she went into the bunker and the bunker closed, while all those people out there were dying, were burning, while her friend back at her home was actually dying and burning as well. But moving on though to the other arc on this episode, and I really love this arc. I mean, I hate Sheidheda as a villain, but nonetheless, hating a villain is actually a good thing. It is a sign that the villain is being portrayed so well. Now 2 episodes ago, we had that talk by Sheidheda to Murphy, all about losing his queen, and let's just say that this episode kind of put that fear in our hearts, that might have been foreshadowing that we might end up actually losing Amori. But I'm sure we're all happy we did not lose Amori on this episode. I mean, she is one of my favorite characters. John Murphy is my favorite, while Octavia comes second, but Amori is definitely third, out of the protagonists that is. Now, I did not think that Sheidheda is gonna get all that he wanted on this episode. I think he was gonna progress his arc, he was gonna get somewhere, he's gonna get what he wanted partially, at the very least, and at the very moment that he announced that he's not really Russel anymore, that he's someone completely different, I was thinking, okay, this guy's probably not gonna announce he's Sheidheda on this episode, he's just come half the way through, and he's gonna do the other half over the upcoming episodes. But he's got no patience to play cat and mouse anymore. He's definitely got no patience, and he goes all out. Let's talk about that in a little bit of detail before we end this video. Now, I want to say it was Indra's fault, but it was not totally Indra's fault. It was also partially Murphy's fault. I mean, this is the guy that kept you playing that game of chess for too long. He knew that this was going down. He was planning for it all along and planning to get out of his cell and in the middle of all of those people in the palace. And that's exactly what he did. But he even played them a lot more. Like a long con, he played on Indra and Murphy, making demands. You know, I want a chess partner. I want to play chess with someone. I want to be able to walk more. Get back my 10 minutes? No, I want 30. Okay, you're gonna get 20. He played them really well until they played into his hands. But there's his, I feel this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, taken right out of the movie Casablanca. It is the second time it has been referenced in weeks. First was the second episode of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., not really a spoiler saying that a quote out of a movie was used on a TV series, and now on the 100, an iconic and pretty infamous quote at that. But things on Sanctum though, they got real complicated real fast. We've got Amori and Murphy coming out to the faithful, announcing that they're not the primes that they think they are, that they are who they've always been, you know, John Murphy and Amori. The same happens with Sheidheda, but he wanted that. He wanted to announce that. He wanted to go halfway. He wanted to get a reason to show people who he really is, to show them that he is Sheidheda. Now, I don't really want to go into the details with Nikki and Nelson, how the hostage situation ended, because that's really filler stuff. Not filler in the sense that this was a filler story or this was a filler episode, but rather in the sense that it paved the road for Sheidheda, nothing more, nothing less. They're less important now that they've been captured. But I'm gonna talk about Indra leaving Sheidheda to be killed by the believers, by the faithful. That was her biggest mistake. That's what he wanted. He wanted them to attack them. He wanted to kill them. He wanted to show his followers, especially out of Sheidheda crew, that he's got no mercy, that he is indeed Sheidheda. And he succeeded at that. And they opened the door, they kneeled before him. And that's where you start thinking maybe Indra was right. Hello, Clarke, go back in time, change your mind, and make sure that Maddie poses as the commander to all of these crews. But that said though, I don't think this episode was my favorite episode of the season. I think it was a pretty solid one. I would personally rate it at an 8 out of 10. A really good episode, just not the best so far. Looking at how my favorites this season were the 4th and the 8th, I'm waiting for the 12th and the 16th. I'm also hoping that the others are as good as those 2 episodes. And I'm thinking in the game of reveals, in the game of showing us what's gonna go down towards the end, there's gonna be a lot of good stuff coming our way. We're still wondering where Bellamy is. We're still wondering where Gaia is. I think they're probably together. I hope they're probably together because I really want them to come back at the same time and I want that to happen soon. We're about to wrap up this story. We're more than halfway through the events of the season. But in the comments down below, you can let me know what you thought of this episode. You can let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it one of those much appreciated likes, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, thank you so much for tuning into this one, stay safe, and have a great day.